Well, welcome to another video. Today we're going to start work on the capstan. This isn't a very involved project, so we're probably also going to work on the forecastle hatches. You'll see those are pretty simple and straightforward too. Um, First part of this is to take this part of the capstan that you get, it's in the plastic kits, and drill 6 holes um, around it for the arms. Okay. And I'm going to step through a series of drill bits starting at 0.8 millimeter and work my way up to the holes have to be 1.5 millimeter in diameter because you're going to use wire to make the arms and stuff that they supply. So I've already kind of drilled one pilot hole in here to kind of test the process. I marked out on the top, and also it might be hard to see inside there, like where these holes need to go. And I just kind of eyeballed it. I think I got them pretty close. There was no real easy way to figure out and mark exactly where those holes needed to be. But looking straight down on it, you can kind of make sure that they're all evenly spaced and whatnot. The final drill bit, which is the 1.5 millimeter, I put some tape on there that's exactly 3 millimeters from the end because I want to make sure that that's the depth that that hole goes to. The instructions tell you to cut the arms to 18 millimeters, but if you look at the plans, they actually stick out of here 18 millimeters. So you have to cut them a little bit longer. So I'll be cutting them to 21 millimeters in length, which gives me the 3 millimeter depth to be able to stick them in there and glue and still have them stick out the 18 millimeters. And that distance is important because as the capstan is going to sit down there, there's going to be a ring of blocks that kind of go around it that'll be spaced out at exactly the same distance. And of course, we want all of the arms to be uniform. I mean, they'll be able to use a rotary tool or a file or something to make some minor adjustments at the end to make sure they're all the same length. But I'm going to go ahead and move the camera because I think I need to get and look really close and to precisely place these holes or they're going to be a little bit off. So let me go and drill the holes and then we'll come back and take a look and maybe fit one of the arms in there. Now I won't glue the arms until the very end. Well, I've gone, got all of the holes drilled in and I cut and sized all of the arms a little bit here. They're not glued in yet, so they're a little bit saggy because there is a little bit of play in there, um, and they're not quite because again they're not glued in yet. So there's a little wiggle room, so they're not perfectly straight coming out in there. And then there's one or two that I think are just a little bit long, or maybe the hole isn't quite deep enough. So I'll have to go in once they're glued in and kind of adjust those. But like I said, I'm not going to glue them in quite yet because we have to do some work down here. So I'm just going to take these out. Like I said, I'll make some adjustments and stuff once they're in. This one's actually a little tight. There you go. And so the next step is to just cut, I think it's 8 of them, little walnut pieces. They're 2x2 block, and to kind of fill in around this in here, that's going to kind of bulk it out a little bit. The trick there is they'll all have to be spaced, and I have a hunch that they're all going to have to be tapered in a little bit in order to get them to all fit with a nice uniform gap around them. So let me go and cut them, and then we'll look and see what we might have to do to get them to fit. Okay, I'm not done yet. I still have more of these to cut. Just a few notes that I've kind of seen on this is first of all, the instructions tell you that they're 5 millimeters long, that's what you're supposed to cut them to, but these actually have to be 9 millimeters in there. So again, another mistake in the instructions on the sizing of stuff. Right now, these are just friction fit. They're not actually glued in at all. I was just using to size them a little bit to see whether if I was going to have to taper the back end to get them all to fit, but I don't think I'm going to have to do that. You can see there's a little bit of a gap kind of between them. To get the spacing right, I did put some lines on the bottom. I also drilled a hole there in the center and stuff. So I'll use those to guide where to place the first four, and then the remaining four will just have to fit equally distance between each of those, which shouldn't be too hard. And so let me go. I'm going to cut the rest of these, get these fit in better and stuff, and kind of glued into place. And then we'll come back. So I think I might actually use a file to kind of taper them this way to make them a little bit narrower up at the top. A lot of capstans are kind of made that way rather than being perfectly vertical on line. So let me go finish that up, and then we'll come back and look at the final result here. Well, I've got everything glued in there on the capstan. I did kind of sand it and file it down a little bit to kind of just give it a little bit of a taper at the top. I'm not really sure the camera kind of really picks all that up. It's pretty subtle there. So the only thing left here is I'm going to varnish it. We'll put a nail into that center hole and then glue in the rods that are going to go on it. I'm not sure completely yet whether I'm going to actually mount it permanently at this point onto the deck, just because it's going to be another thing that's kind of in the way in there as I build some of the other stuff. So, there'll be a hole drilled where the nail will go right in. So getting it, put in and centered and everything up, later on, it's not going to be that big of a difficulty. So, but anyway, let me go varnish it, glue the rods in, and I'll come back and take a look at the final result. Okay, everything is glued into the capstan, and there's exactly what it's going to look like on the ship. There's still a little bit of detail to put on it. The tips of each of the arms will be painted black, but we'll be using the black paint in the next step. So I'll just paint those then. It's just sitting in there in the hole that I drilled for it. It's not actually glued in yet. And the reason being, and this is just another one of these odd things with the instructions for the ship, it's kind of really, some of the stuff I think is out of order. So um, I have skipped around a little bit, but I'm kind of back on track in terms of being in the correct order of things. And it has you build a capstan at this stage, but way down, like many steps later, it has you put a series of blocks, little pieces of wood that are going to form a circle on the deck around there. Now, what those would be places for the sailors to kind of place their feet to get leverage when they were working the capstan and stuff. But it has you glue the capstan in now, and then you have to go in and put these 16 blocks that need to be spaced perfectly, evenly and at a certain distance and all that stuff. And putting those in place with the capstan glued in would be very difficult. So I'm actually going to go and kind of do that now. But what I want to show you is I made a little jig. So there's 16 of these. And so there needs to be basically 22 degrees between each one of these. So I took a little piece of wood. This is just a little piece of balsa wood that I have, and cut it at a 22.5 degree angle. So it's 22.5 degrees between each one of these. And so I can use the hole that I drilled to hold the capstan, and all the jig is that piece of wood with a nail attached in that'll go straight into that hole. And I know one of the pieces of wood will line up perfectly with the planks on the deck. So, and I've got these two lines in there, and that's exactly where the plank or that piece of wood is going to go. Well, all I'm going to do is draw lines. So I can draw one here, one between those lines, advance it up, draw the next one, draw the next one. So then I'm just penciling in the lines. They will all be the exact right distance and everything. And then all I have to do is place each one of these pieces of wood right over those lines. And they should form a nice perfect circle going around the capstan. So that's exactly, kind of how I'm going to do that. So that's actually the next thing I'm going to do. I just need to go and cut all of these 16 little pieces. They're all, I think, I got to check. They're either 9 or 10 millimeters long each out of the same 2x2 walnut that we've been using. So let me go and cut that, and then we'll come back and I'll show you. We'll show you how I'm going to be placing them. Okay, well, I've got all 16 of those little pieces cut out. They're just set there. They're not glued into place yet. And in addition to just cutting them to length, I rounded the corners a little bit. That'll help kind of strengthen them, and just a little extra bit of detail in there. And I was just kind of placing them to see how good I can get it. And you can see it comes out pretty good. I think I bumped the ship a little bit, so one of them's a little bit out of position in there. But I decided I wanted another jig to help with it, so I just created this thing. The ends of each one of those should be 15 millimeters from the center. And so this piece of wood is 30 millimeters long, so I can actually do two at a time on opposite Okay, so I've started making up the gratings for the forecastle, and unlike the last time, I cut the pieces to size and glued them in that way. But now it's time to trim all of the little excess off on all of these. They're all supposed to be cut like flush to one of the boards in here. So what I found is the best way is to use this disc sander and just be very careful, as I push it in, make sure I'm not going too far or too fast. There we go. And that's how I get them all down to the right size that they need, all trimmed up. I'll take a hand sander and go over this uh, just to kind of finish it up and get it all nice and flush and smooth. But let me knock out these others. Okay, I've taken the gratings that we made and framed them up. I didn't think there was any reason to film that because it's pretty much the same process that I'd shown in the previous video and everything. These things are going to be put on the deck up here, right about like this. And the one thing I don't like about it, though, is that when you look down onto them, you can see that deck below. When, on the real ship, these would have been hatches. They would have gone down to the lower decks. It would have been dark. So what I'm going to do is mask off the area around where this is going to sit, and then I'm going to paint black paint underneath there, and then we'll glue these on in their place. Now their position is pretty simple to figure out. It tells you in the instructions that this corner is going to be 5 millimeters in from this section, and then 5 millimeters up from the railing there. And fortunately, they give you a whole bunch of planks that are 5 millimeters wide. So it's pretty easy to just kind of come in here and using some of the planks to figure out exactly where the corner, is going to be. Now, it's a little slightly off from square because I don't think this part is perfect in there and stuff. So, but I have all the lines for all of the planks to indicate it. So the important thing is to figure out where that corner is, and then we're going to align and orient this thing using the lines and whatnot for the planks. And I'll just mark off the corners, and then I'm going to tape in a little bit to kind of mask it off. I can make the area I'm painting a little bit smaller than what the footprint of this is. That gives us a little bit of wiggle room, even if a little bit of paint runs through, or over the masking tape or something like that. So let me go ahead and get everything masked off, and then we'll come back and we'll paint the deck. All right, now I used just some painter's tape there to mask everything off on where this is going to sit, and put some paint here on the palette, and now I'll just start painting the deck. One coat will be more than sufficient. We don't have to have this thing perfectly pitch black, and we don't want to go over it any more than we have to. All right, so we'll give that a couple minutes to dry, and then we'll come back and pull off the tape. Okay, well, I think the paint is pretty much dry here, so we'll start pulling up the masking tape and see what it looks like. Hopefully nothing ran too much. Got a little bit, but should not be a problem. Yeah, all that's going to sit underneath. That is just fine. It's going to look perfect. So I'm going to go and glue these on. You know, I got to get over it, make sure that I'm placing them down there precisely so my head will be in the way of the camera. But I think this is a good spot. I'm going to conclude the video here because we kind of wrapped up phase one of building out the deck. And so starting after this, we're going to turn our attention back to the hull. And the first thing I need to do is sand the outer planking all down, get that nice and smooth, because I need to get that done before we do the next step. We'll be looking at building out the stern galleries. There's a couple decks out there that are going to get built up. One of them will be enclosed, so we've got to do some more deck planking. We're going to come back to that a little bit. A lot of the outer planking and stuff that's going to go on there. So you'll see. So that's going to be the next steps. I think then after that we do the keel and the stem, and then we can start working on the strakes. So for probably the next few videos, for sure we'll be working back on the hull again, leaving the deck pretty much as is. Also point out that while I had the black paint out, I added the black paint to the tips of the arms of the capstan. Again, that's still not glued in. I'm not going to glue that in until much later in the process here, but I just wanted to stick it on there to kind of see what it's going to look like with the tips painted. So anyway, if you want to continue to follow along as we build the San Felipe, please like and subscribe to my videos. Thank you for watching.